When did your boss become your husband's girlfriend? After 6 months of rejections, I finally landed my dream job and couldn't shut up about my boss, Sarah, this brilliant woman who'd built an empire by 35 while raising 3 kids alone. I'd rave to my unemployed husband, Tom, about how she revolutionized work-life balance, how she made each employee feel seen, how she was basically everything I aspired to become, and Tom played the supportive husband perfectly, leaning in at dinner and asking follow-up questions even though he was drowning in his own career failures. But then he met her at the Christmas party and saw what I'd somehow never mentioned. She was absolutely stunning. After that day, Tom started following Sarah on LinkedIn and Instagram for what he called professional networking inspiration, asking me daily questions about what she wore to meetings and which restaurants she recommended for client lunches. When I mentioned her recent divorce from her cheating ex-husband, Tom got genuinely angry and kept saying things like, "What kind of man would throw away a woman like that?" which seemed sweet at the time. He began picking me up from work for surprise lunch dates, but I noticed he'd arrive early and park where he could watch the building entrance. And when I asked why he switched gyms, he claimed the one near my office had better equipment even though it meant an hour commute. My family thought it was adorable how invested he'd become in my career success. And even my boss mentioned once how lucky I was to have such a supportive husband who clearly valued professional women. When we ran into Sarah at a wine bar with a younger man, Tom completely lost his composure and spent 20 minutes frantically searching social media until he discovered it was just her nephew visiting from college. He actually seemed relieved, and I finally confronted him that night about being in love with her. But he just laughed bitterly and said, "Someone like her would never even notice someone like me anyway." For weeks after that, he'd wake me at 2 a.m. scrolling through her LinkedIn or asking if I thought she dated younger men. And I'd lie there staring at the ceiling feeling like a ghost in my own bed until I finally broke down crying one morning and told him I needed us to try counseling or I was done. He agreed to go but stopped after 3 sessions, barely speaking to me except to ask about Sarah, claiming the therapist was biased and didn't understand that admiration wasn't the same as attraction. I started calling in sick to avoid seeing her at work, hating myself for ever mentioning her name in our home, resenting her perfect smile in meetings while my marriage crumbled because of someone who didn't even know my husband existed. Tom created dating profiles with photos from his new gym routine and started disappearing during lunch hours, always with elaborate excuses about client meetings he couldn't discuss. When I suggested a trial separation, he moved out immediately and seemed almost eager to leave, insisting I was making drama out of his simple professional admiration for a successful businesswoman. He blocked me on social media but forgot about the iPad we shared, where I could still see his Instagram stories. That's how I discovered the photo of him holding a woman's hand at an upscale restaurant downtown, though her face wasn't visible in the frame. I texted him WTF, and he called me within seconds, voice shaking with panic, begging me over and over not to ruin this for him and please don't tell her about us. My mind couldn't process what he meant until he explained he'd matched with Sarah on Bumble 6 weeks ago, and she had no idea he was married to one of her employees, thinking they'd just met at her regular gym where he'd been secretly working out every morning while I was in the office 20 feet away. "This is the first time in my life I felt truly alive," he sobbed into the phone. "And you already ended our marriage, so why can't you just let me be happy for once?" When I said I had to tell her the truth, he spiraled into pure desperation, offering me everything in the divorce if I just kept quiet, and gave him time to tell her himself because she'd already mentioned she didn't date liars. I hung up and spent all night pacing. Furious, he expected me to protect his lies, and by sunrise I knew exactly what I had to do. The next morning I asked Sarah for a private meeting and watched her face transform from confused to horrified as I explained everything from his obsessive questions to the secret gym membership to the months of digital stalking before they randomly matched online. She kept apologizing to me even though she'd done nothing wrong, and that afternoon Tom showed up at my apartment hysterical and broken, calling me vindictive and cruel for destroying his one chance at happiness when I was the one who'd left him with no choice but to find someone new. Sarah filed a restraining order after Tom sent her 47 texts in one night explaining how I was a jealous liar trying to sabotage their destiny, and she blacklisted him through her extensive business network, which meant he couldn't find work anywhere in our city. I received a promotion and substantial raise because Sarah felt somehow responsible for my situation, and over the months we developed a genuine friendship that made me realize what healthy admiration actually looked like. Just last week she called me laughing in disbelief because her best friend had been getting messages from Tom for months, asking detailed questions about her friend's female boss at a marketing firm and gushing about how inspiring women entrepreneurs were to him now that he'd grown so much as a person.